Optimus Prime's trailer has always been one of his most iconic features, going all the way back to the halcyon days of Generation 1. It was really what elevated an otherwise standard and uninteresting truck robot into the pinnacle of the good guy faction, with its multiple configurations and limitless imaginative potential. Over the years, the trailer has become so synonymous with Optimus Prime that it might as well be a part of him, something which is ironic considering his original character treatment. After Generation 2, the trailer has appeared on and off throughout the years, even snagging a live-action appearance in Dark of the Moon. Lately, it seems Hasbro's been extremely trailer-happy, as while they've been releasing scores of Voyager-scale Primes, they've taken two, changed them up a bit, and re-released them with all new trailers of their own for the leader price point. Without further ado, here's the one I've actually deigned myself to buy. Welcome to Kit Katastrophe. My name is Kit, and today we'll be taking a look at Transformers Studio Series Leader Class Optimus Prime. This figure was released in 2019 as part of Wave 3 of the Leader assortment, and is a retool of Studio Series Voyager Class Optimus Prime number 32, which is itself a retool of Studio Series Voyager Class Optimus Prime number 05. This figure represents Optimus Prime's appearance in the 2011 film Transformers Dark of the Moon, and was requested to be reviewed by Jason Star Prime and Afzal Artwork. As the third attempt at capturing Optimus Prime's Peterbilt 379 alternate mode from the original trilogy of live-action films in this line, I'd say this figure does a pretty good job at first glance. The shapes are all proper and present, and the color work isn't half bad either. As opposed to the first two Voyager-class Optimus Primes in Studio Series, Prime's front features the iconic orange-to-red gradient from the real-life truck. The front end also features tons of silver paint on the grille, which hardly wants to stay together on my copy, windows, and smokestacks, though I'm somewhat miffed by the fact that the bar separating both halves of the windshield was painted over, as minor an issue as that may be. From the side, the truck looks majorly gappy and unclean, as robot parts are clearly visible, as if Optimus was short on time and decided to sweep up all the dust underneath the rug of an alternate mode. There is an attempt at showing the steps leading up to the doors, but they're so flat and unconvincing that I wonder if they even should have bothered. The toolboxes, which were meant to go behind Prime's gas tanks, are also missing, but no one really misses them. In a strange return to once-forgotten form, Prime's smokestacks have been shortened, potentially for safety reasons, which is something I haven't seen in a while. All of these small niggling issues could be forgiven, and I could enjoy this alternate mode, if it weren't for Prime's massive feet just hanging around in the rear of the truck like he's some kind of e-thought trying to get donations from his simp army. I know this has been a thing since, Age of Extinction, but it's still really lazy and annoying to see when we've had so many other Primes that don't try this bullshit. Like, the vehicle mode wasn't great, but this kind of ruins what could have been passable. Now, before I move on to the main event, the only minor accessory worth talking about in this mode is Optimus Prime's Ion Blaster. There's a rectangular port on the inside of the gun, which hugs tightly to the driver's side box on Optimus's nose, and there are slots on either side of the sleeper into which the gun can tab. With that out of the way, let's bring in the trailer. This box on wheels is really big and hefty compared to the guy towing it, which is how I like it. Sadly, the thing is barely painted except for the blue, I want to say, climate control unit. The rest is a flat, boring gray, which is a shame considering in the film this was one of those shiny chrome trailers like the ones Cisco used that cause retinal damage whenever one of them passes by during rush hour, the fucking pricks. That being said, the sculpted detail is still fine, with appropriate ridges for her pleasure and the iconic Optimus Prime stripe running down the flanks, and diamond plate detailing on the doors, which can open and reveal a whole lot of nothing. What gets my goat is that the front set of tires on this thing are completely fake and naturally don't turn. What a fucking tease. The only word I can really think of to describe Optimus Prime's transformation succinctly is messy. Now, the live-action Optimus design went through a similar refinement process that Bumblebee's design went through, up to the point where we were getting masterpiece-level transformations at a Voyager size and price point, but it seems that after Age of Extinction changed Prime's design towards a more knightly aesthetic, the knowledge was lost in the proverbial Library of Alexandria, as the Studio Series take feels more like what today's design team would have come up with if they were to do a live-action movie Optimus for the very first time, if that makes any sense. There's a bit of cheating with the windshield chest, even though the real windshield is directly behind them. It's also weird to see the legs be formed backwards from almost every other rendition of this design, though I feel the attempt was valiant enough that I'll overlook the inaccuracies. Still, after seeing some of the other offerings for a movie Optimus over the years, this is pretty underwhelming. For what it's worth, I'd say the robot mode fares a lot better. From most angles, this is a fairly accurate representative of Optimus Prime's on-screen model from the Dark of the Moon film, more or less. There are some issues that I'll get into later, but there are a lot of things I really like about this robot mode. For starters, the head sculpt is about as accurate as you could hope for, with a silver-painted faceplate and all-spark blue eyes. I just wish there was a little more silver on the earmuffs, but beggars can't be choosers, I guess. The arms are adequately sculpted and painted, though I like the orientation of the truck cowling on his sleeves, giving off the impression of a flaming punch. Other Optimus Primes are content to hide this away, but I feel the Studio Series figure uses it to good effect. The problems begin in the underarms, where the front wheel arches are placed, making his torso look a bit chubbier than we're used to from a movie Prime. This chubby torso wraps around and leads to a somewhat anemic backpack. Well, the backpack itself is pretty bulky, but the movie-accurate parts are weedy and barely there. Also, there's a major gap as seen from the side. These back pieces are supposed to be his shoulder blades, not just decor. Like I gleaned from Transformation, Prime's legs are pretty inaccurate, with the hip wheels being made from the front two pairs and the rear pair placed on his ankle, while the on-screen model has the whole scheme reversed. I don't mind it so much, though of course I would have rather had seen the front wheel arches down on his ankles instead of under his arms. The trailer from Vehicle Mode wasn't just for show. Opening it up and splitting it reveals that the main chunk of it segments and expands to form the weapons ring as seen in the Chernobyl scene of Dark of the Moon, utilizing peculiar arch pieces to make sure it keeps its proper shape. Also, during transformation, you'll be quick to find out that there are a shit ton of extra accessories that you'll want to remove to make the process easier. This weapons ring doesn't quite look very much like the thing featured in the film from which it came, except for its general shape. I'm also not sure whether or not it's in scale, as Optimus barely fits through it if you were wanting to make some arming up poses. Outside of just sitting there, the ring doesn't do much besides act as weapon storage, though to be fair, it can pack a lot of heat. The ring features two 5mm ports on the front side and one on the base, with 12 more on the inside, enough to fit all of Prime's new gear, which includes an unpainted silver axe reminiscent of the one used to decapitate Megatron, an unpainted silver shield, which I feel suits the axe nicely, though he doesn't quite hold it like you'd expect, a handheld version of Prime's signature orange blade, which is the only painted accessory of the bunch, but fits loosely in his hand, and the ion blaster we talked about in Vehicle Mode. Overall, I'd say this is a pretty solid inventory for Optimus, and it leaves open a lot of posing options. Getting Optimus Prime into his jet wing mode requires very little modification on his part. All you really have to do is fold the outer part of the backpack down, while the jetpack itself does the rest. The remainder of the trailer that doesn't become the weapons ring unfurls itself to become a glorious set of wings for the Autobot leader to don. Oh my. This is a larger wingspan than I'm used to seeing on a typical Optimus with a jetpack style power-up. It's definitely movie accurate for the most part, though I can't help but feel it's a bit tacked on. From the front, there's hardly anything to suggest that it's actually attached to its host, save for two thin gray tendrils sliding over Prime's shoulders. This feeling can be abetted by utilizing the two extremely hollow guns which were meant to be used in this mode, adding some more visual interest in the front to tie it all together. As far as a power-up mode goes, I've seen better, but it's not the worst thing ever. Okay, so I'm doing this articulation segment with the jetpack on because the jetpack does have joints of its own and I like to cover those, and I feel like it would be very inefficient if I did two separate articulation segments, and it doesn't really affect the posability of the base figure, so win-win. Starting at the head, he has a ball joint that can look left and to right, and it can look up extremely far. I accidentally burst open his chest, but as you can see, he can look up a fair amount. And he can look down a little bit. and it's just a really expressive ball joint. He can't really tilt or anything. I mean, he can, but it's not very noticeable, so I wouldn't say it's useful, but it does offer lots of character, which is pretty good. The shoulders rotate 360 degrees, though in this case they're blocked by the jetpack, and they do move all the way outwards, with this shoulder pad being able to move independently. The biceps swivel 360 degrees, and the arms bend a little over 90 degrees, and the wrists swivel 360 degrees. The cowling from the truck is able to move around on some hinges to get out of the way for different poses, or if you want to give him an accessory that gets in the way in its base configuration. He has a waist swivel that gets in the way of the backpack. These wheels get in the way of the backpack, so you'd want to move the legs forward on their joints before you turn the waist, and the waist can go 360 degrees all the way around in theory if it weren't for these wheels. I mean, I suppose you could fold them down too, but they do clash, and that's kind of a shame. As I demonstrated just earlier, the legs do go forward a fair bit, and they don't go backwards very far because they bang into the backpack. They can go backwards a little further if it weren't for the jetpack, but there isn't much anyway. The thighs swivel just above the knee, which means that this middle wheel comes out of line from the top wheel on his hip, which can be irksome to some, especially as the joints get in the way of each other. I don't want this thing to snap off anytime soon, so do be careful about where all the wheels are at any given time. The knees bend over 90 degrees, and that is a very, very nice range of the knee bend. It's not quite double jointed, but it does get the job done. Also, the knee pads can move back and forth depending on your personal preferences. Finally, for the base figure, the ankles rock forward and backward, and they move side to side. They move outwards more than they do inwards, so that's kind of weird, but it does allow for some wider stances. Now, on the backpack, the wings themselves can move up on a hinge here, and the backpack does like to disengage from itself from time to time, so do be careful about that. They also have a swivel here that allows him to divert his thrust, and the wing tips have a hinge here that allows for, I guess, better display options, as he doesn't, jut out as wide as he would at full mast. So Optimus Prime is a pretty posable figure. He has quite a few limitations that I think are pretty easy to work around, though they are a little annoying, and I know some other people might find them annoying, so just be mindful about where all the parts are and you'll be okay. I hate to say it, but this figure has a lot of competition, and I don't feel it holds up against said competition. The most obvious comparison would be to Earthrise Optimus Prime, as both figures are Voyager-sized primes with a trailer to make up the difference. I feel that in terms of sheer value, Studio Series has Earthrise beat, though I might be biased as I have Generation 1 Prime and I myself have neither need nor want for another trailer, so your desires may vary. As far as the robots themselves go, Earthrise is getting very good reviews, and even I'd say that the Earthrise version is a superior figure, and I don't even have it. The Studio Series take on Optimus from the 2007 film would be your best alternative to this figure, as it comes with the same blaster, doesn't have the trash proportions that the Revenge of the Fallen iteration had, can still combine with Jetfire, but has slightly worse paint and lacks the trailer and its included weapons. If you don't want to spend the $50 price tag for this figure, and I don't blame you if you don't, that's your best bet. Though, if you want the perfect Voyager-class figure of Optimus Prime from the live-action films, I'd say you should try to hunt down the Hunt for the Decepticons Battle Blades Optimus Prime, or one of its reuses. As it is, and as fun as this figure truly is, I can't recommend it to anyone who doesn't care about the weapons ring or the jetpack. This figure isn't bad by any means, it's just not as good as it should be. With that, I give Studio Series Optimus Prime the rank of crummy. If you like this video or otherwise found it helpful or informative, then please subscribe for more reviews like this in the future, and feel free to suggest topics for future reviews. I do take note of every request I get. When we return, we're going all the way back to Generation 1, to the vintage year of 2003. This has been Katastrophe. Transform and roll out.